Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us again this evening in another episode of this program we have tagged Legacy 322. It has been an amazing journey this month of October as we have spent the Mondays listening to different people talking about different topics in relation to legacy, what legacy is, how important legacy is. And someone asked me and said, look, why are you having this program? Why are you having this series of events? Every Monday you're talking to someone different. Every Tuesday you're talking to a different music minister. Why? And the answer is really simple. I was having some thoughts in my mind, going to God and saying, God, how do I address these things? And God's word to me was really clear. He said, look, you need faith to do the impossible. And I said, yes, with faith, all things are possible. And he said, but do you realize that faith is not based on knowledge you are going to acquire? Faith is based on knowledge you have already acquired. So there is something somewhere in your past that already serves as leverage for you to grab hold of what you need in the future. And that's why we've been doing this program, speaking to people who understand the subject matter, speaking to people who can enlighten us on this particular topic and hopefully help us in that next journey of life. And tonight, I have a very important guest. And look, be ready. I know it's going to be explosive. When he starts speaking, he's just full of life and full of energy. And it's going to be an amazing time. But before I introduce him, what I would like to say is this: please share the links across all the platforms. We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. So please go ahead and share this link with your friends, with your family. Look, it's going to be life changing. I know that. When I called our guest, the first thing he said on the phone to me just brought growth and development. Just one sentence that he said on the phone to me. So, without taking too much of our time, I'd like to introduce our guest for today, and our guest is someone who is a consultant on cultural intelligence. He is a Sunday newspaper commentator at BBC Radio London. He's governor at the London School of Theology. He's associate director at Hope Together. He is a pastor at Jesus House UK. And he's also the director of One People Commission at the Evangelical Alliance. Join me and welcome Yemi Adedeji, the bridge, and we call him Revi. Revi, you are welcome to the show.
Good evening. How are you? Great to be here tonight. I look forward to an exciting time.
Thank you for making the time to be here with us. We really, really appreciate your time. And Revi, let's just go straight into this conversation. As I read out that profile, there was just something that came to my mind. And before we even get into the core of this conversation on legacy, how do you juggle all these things together? Do you do it?
People have asked me that question many times. How do I get to do all that I do? We use the word juggle them together. Perhaps there are more into what you listed than I do, basically. But the central part of the whole thing is I'm actually doing the same thing for everyone. And that is engaging from the capacity of what is unique to me in engaging with everyone's concern, because you can only give what you have. You can't give what you don't have. But then what you have is not something you center into one place. It's something you duplicate. So the process of life is not only to discover what you have, but is the grace to deploy it in different outlets. And as you deploy into different outlets, it creates capacity, and you create a momentum. And then you also realize that you are building strength in collaboration with other people. And ultimately, it will appear as if you are the one doing all of that, but really, you are not the only one doing it. But because you have created capacity, collaboration with other people, and you are steering it ahead, and then what other people make you shine as if you are the one doing it. Basically, I'm just the brain behind most of the things.
Wow. You said something there that I want to press on, Revi. You said basically you do the same thing for everybody.
Correct.
Please enlighten us on that, because if I'm looking at you from the outside and I look at all these different things that you do, I only caught a few out. The list was so long, but I just said, okay, let me just take a few here. If people look at that from outside, they assume that you're doing so many things differently in all these different places. How did you create that niche of, look, I'm
Yeah.
just doing the same thing and I'm deploying the same thing in all these places?
Okay, that brings me to the area where I've centered my conversation along in the recent time. Is a question of not. I'd never define myself about what I do, because that's what you're trying to do. I do all these things. I do all these things. I'm not defined by what I do. I'm defined by who I am. And
Mm.
so who I am is the central piece. And the outcome of who I am is all those things that you see, which is much more than what you are what you have listed, which could be more. But what individual needs to understand is that who really I am. What's my DNA? What am I created to do, to be, and to become? And so, if you understand that I discover myself as being a bridge relationship, build relationship network, empowering and giving people the capacity to discover and relate and engage with others. So being a bridge then means it is translated in diverse way in which I operate. The nucleus, the spider head, is the bridge. And so being a bridge means I'm a consultant. I
Wow.
consult relationship wise with organizations, and in that sense, I'm a bridge as a pastor, or in my ministry, in the work I do for compassion, getting the children out of poverty, out all across the world. So I'm a bridge as an author in the books I've written to engage others to see what my experiences and my exposure. I'm a bridge as a speaker. So I'm linking people up with information. I'm a bridge as a fashion designer or modeling, which I do at times. So I'm a bridge as a leader in connecting leaders' work and capacity together in what they do. So here it is. It's better for me to define myself by who I am as compared to what I do. So if you remove me now and take me to Timbuktu or put me in China, it's not what I do that will define me, because what you do is temporary, and what you do over time will not be you. So if I hold on if my identity is based on the title, position, on what I do, so when those title and position are gone, it removes the power, the influence, and what I have to be me, because those things have defined me, but I've not defined myself by the DNA of what God has put in me. So I define what I do. What I do does not define me.
Ravi, some people would say that how do I get to a point where I can make that distinction? How do I get to a point where I know that, look, this is what I do? I mean, so I know some people would say, who is this person? Oh, he's a doctor, he's a lawyer, he's a pastor, he's a this. But that's what they do. How do you carve that question of identity out to get to a point where you say, this is who I am, as very distinct from what I do?
Very good question. I've gone through that moment in my life, and I guess it's one of those moments where I got a team, my team together, and I was trying to rebuild my website, and they kept asking me the question. But excuse me, you kept telling us what you do. You're a director there, but that's not who you are. That's just what you do. Who really are you? Who are you? What is the DNA? What is the seed of identity that God puts in you that wakes you up in the morning, that wherever you are, that's what drives you? What is the nucleus phrase of what inspire and encourage you to be who you are and what you do? Do you inspire? Are you a catalyst? Are you a motivator? Are you do you bring joy into people? Do you escalate situations? What exactly is that is you, that is technically you in life, that wherever you put that into, it changes. If you find yourself in an environment, and because of who you are, it changes the expression, the story, the anecdote that people wants to follow in that particular place. And I think that's where it's important. That's what I do now. I help people to find out who they really are, the why behind their life, not what they do. Why did God create me? What is it about me? What makes me to be different? What is it about me that people pause and pay attention about? Exactly is it that when I engage people with it, they pay attention, that I made a difference? And until we find that litmus changing expression of our life, we will end up defining ourselves by what we do. There's nothing wrong about what we do, but whatever we do must be shaped by the legacy you're talking about that we leave behind in who we are.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Let me. You see, just listening to that now, my mind is processing so many of those things you said, and I'm thinking, goodness me, do I need to go and reevaluate everything that we have been doing? Oh, wow, wow. All right, let me move this conversation on, because on this issue of identity here, you've talked about the fact that you were trying to build a website and people were asking questions. But I want to ask you this question: at what point did the penny drop for you? At what
Okay.
point did you know something is fundamentally wrong here? And secondly, um, to what degree did all these activities that are going on around you help to shape that identity? And the reason I ask the question that way is this: you see, some people are maybe more intentional about it. Some people just find themselves doing the things and they think, wow, this is who I am. Where did the penny drop for you? What do you remember a story where something happened and you said, that's it?
Very, very good question. Extremely. You see, first of all, let's unpack this, that finding out who you are, to me, could be by default in the journey of life, but it could also be divine. But ultimately, God wants us to find who we are. Mine was almost both. But let me unpack the divine nature of it. All along in my life, I found myself being a bridge in one way or the other, but it's not clearly defined. But I just realized that that's what I do. For example, when I left my job at Marks and Spencer's to become a missionary, I joined Church Mission Society, Anglican Church Mission Society. I realized that God has put me there to link the black church, the black church in UK, to the established churches. So the role has been going on, but the penny drop on this particular day or event, or a particular event. It was the general overseer of Redeem, Pastor Adeboye, who many years ago, I mean, they were doing a gathering in London, and then someone asked me that, do I know someone who, maybe from the Anglican Church, who can come and speak at the gathering? And so the then chaplain to Her Majesty the Queen was my friend, still my friend. only that he's going to live in America. So I told him, and he said, great. So he went to speak at the conference, and the general overseer loved him so much. So he invited him to come to Nigeria. And so they asked me to come alongside with him. My very first time to go into Redeem conference in Nigeria. But when we got there, I noticed that this guy was just, there was all people all around him and stuff like that, and people ignore me as if you don't exist.
Wow.
So it created a lot of pain in me, because I was thinking, you will know him without me. Why is all this stuff going on? And my friend got into a Nigerian world, new clothes, new shoes, security, and it was like, hey, Yemi. I'm like, hey. So the bitterness grew in me that what's going on here? Nobody will know this guy without me, and then nobody will know. Nobody will know this guy to exist without me as well. So I was missing the fact that the link I was playing. And the moment it became a reality to me was I got back to my hotel on the last Sunday before we left. We've been to a reception, and people will ask you, what do you do? Then I had no title, I had nothing. So just say my name is Yemi, they just ignore me. Nigerian stuff. Move on to the next step. So I got to my hotel on that day. I dropped my jacket. I was upset with him. I was upset with God. I was upset with myself. I was upset with everybody. I've
Wow.
got to the end of this. I felt humiliated, degraded somehow as I sat on my bed. And I was so annoyed about everything. And at that moment, the Spirit of God came upon my heart and said to me, young man, it's because you don't know what you have been called for. Because I was speaking to God, not praying. I was speaking to God. I said, God, I hate this. I don't like this. This is not a good thing. And I felt the Lord said it's because you don't know what you've been called for or what you've been called to. And I asked the question back, like you're asking God in your spirit, what I've been called to. Nobody's been called to be dehumanized or something like that. And I felt the Lord said to me, it's because you've been called to be a bridge. And I said, bridge? What's that? I've never had a ministry of the bridge before in the Bible. It doesn't make sense. What's the bridge? And I felt the Spirit of the Lord also explained to me that here it is. The bridge doesn't go and meet people. The people come to look for the bridge.
Wow.
The bridge is stationary, but people will go everywhere to find the bridge. Until they find the bridge, they can't cross to the other side. So
Wow.
the bridge remains. But then the Lord then said to me that when they get to the bridge, when they find the bridge is as important before they find the bridge. When they find the bridge, the excitement to find the bridge, to now we found the bridge, might diminish. And then here is also the caveat. When they climb the bridge, you have to decrease because it's no more about you. You are important before they found you. But once they found you, you must allow them to cross and shine
Wow.
onto the other side while you decrease. And here it is. Not everybody that walks on the bridge will appreciate the bridge. Some will be grateful. Some will even rubbish the bridge. But one thing is certain, the bridge don't move. But people will come all around the world to find the bridge. Because until they find the bridge, they cannot connect to the next level. And I asked the Lord, please tell me, Lord. Just show me in the Bible where this one is, that I'll know it's the Spirit of the Lord speaking to me. Instantly, I felt the Spirit of the Lord said to me, don't you understand that John the Baptist was the bridge that
Wow.
Jesus rode from humanity to divinity? That nobody knew Jesus. But the moment he said, there goes the Lamb of God that takes away the sin of the world, even his own disciples, they left him immediately. And that was then John the Baptist decrease so that Jesus can increase. But there will not be Jesus being identified without John the Baptist. He became the bridge between divinity and humanity. And so for me, understanding that, trying to run away from it, and when I told the story to my team, they said, there it is. And then when I begin to look at my life between then and now, I can say this to you. Honestly, between God and man, I've never, ever, ever looked for any of the road that I do today. None. Never. They come looking for me. And every time they look for me, the God will remind me, the bridge. You don't look for people. People look for you.
Wow. We can just close now and go. We have it. Wow. I want to pick on something there because I think there is a big lesson in something you said there. When you saw someone that you had brought to the fore suddenly being elevated, something in you started to turn, almost feeling like, how come I put you in this place? You are
Yeah.
gone and you've forgotten me.
Mhm.
From your experience, Revi, how many people could have, what kind of impact would not going back into that prayer room like you did have had in destroying many destinies? Because people want the limelight, they want the bit where everybody is going to see them. And one little thing that caused that bitterness shuts the door over every other advancement in their lives. Have you seen that kind of thing a lot, Revi?
Well, there will be. I was at that verge. To be honest, I will not be different from the people who will have felt so, because my feeling when I left the launch going back to the hotel was, I literally just, let me use a strong word. I hated everybody.
Wow.
I hated the guy. We were in the car. I said, "Don't talk to me. Do not talk to me. I don't like you. I brought you here. You are now a celebrity. You forgot I brought you here." And then in my mind, I'm thinking, I just want to get back to London. I'm tired of all these people. You
How did
know,
you respond to that, Revi, when you said that?
he was just laughing. He was just laughing at me, and I didn't want to talk to him because I was already at a state that I don't. This guy, you use me. Everybody's using me and stuff like that. Now you think that way because you do not understand who you are. So God got me to the extreme when I was back in the wall, and I have nowhere to turn to but to turn to God in my anguish, in my anger, in my frustration, whereby I'm even angry with God, where I'm saying to God, God, I don't like anybody. I don't like anything. And it was at that moment that I said, I guess God wanted me to get to that place before He will actually minister to me and speak to my heart. Because I was having a conversation. I didn't know I was having a conversation. It was after the conversation was over, then I realized that, hang on a minute. I was actually talking to someone, and someone was talking back to me, and I didn't know I was having a conversation. But it was such a God moment, and that moment changed my life till this moment I'm talking to you. It really changed my life because every single moment when people come to me and say, "Yemi, can you help us this?" Oh, somebody has come to us and say, when we get to you, our problem will be solved. You'll be able to connect us and things like. Every time the Lord remind me, the bridge don't go to people. The
Oh,
people find the bridge because the
wow.
bridge is the medium that will connect people to the next level. Is finding that. So using that narrative of that story, that means, how do I develop and deploy and then dominate or have and duplicate that which God has given to me? Then there came that expression. How do I become a bridge in leadership? I'm already in leadership, so how do I become a bridge in leadership? So how do I become a bridge? So being a bridge, and my work as a consultant then created avenue for me, because all I do is just a bridge to every organization that I work for. So I never try to do what I am not. I focus myself on my assignment, on my call, on what I know I have God competence to deliver. So that's what I do. So when I'm writing the book I'm writing from the context of, I want to be a bridge that connects, that relate, that bring people into clarity and understanding of God's call, God's assignment for their life, so that they can move from where they are to where God will want them to be.
Wow. Wow. Oh, whoa. All right. Let me move there. There are a lot of questions here. Let me move this on because when we start to talk about this point of legacy, Um, is this an intentional thing, or is it something that people just get into things like what has happened to you and realize that hang on a minute, I'm starting to create a legacy here?
For me, you are right about that. Um, already start. No, legacy is not something that you just wake up that you want to get to by default. It's intentional. It's something that you plan. So many people have different kind of sight in life. There are different kind of sight in life. There are people who they don't even have a plan to have a legacy anyway because they're only thinking about what is not existing or the story of the past of the achievement, or some are actually looking down into what they are doing today. But those who are thinking legacy, they are not even thinking about their 5 year strategy plan or 10 year strategy plan. Those are the people that are looking about the story that will be told about them when they are dead. So when you start to think about that, then you begin to reposition yourself and what you do and what you bring to life to impact and to change people's life intentionally. So I'm intentional about the path, the process I've walked in life to leave legacy. So part of the things that is important about legacy is that you will not be forgotten as soon as you'll be forgotten as soon as you are dead, unless of course you write something that people can read, or people write something that is worthwhile about you. But the
Wow.
question is, either you write something before you are dead that becomes a legacy that people read about you, or you are so important that people write something about you when you are dead. And so every single experience and the journey we take in life, they are stories. So it is the story that we pass on that becomes legacy. So the things we read in the Bible are legacy passed down by the story that people have given to us. If you read the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, when Dr. Luke was writing to Theophilus, he was writing to Theophilus. He was writing an anecdotal legacy of the apostles and about Jesus. He wrote that what I've seen, what I've heard. It did more like a research study, qualitative and qualitative research study about Jesus and about the apostles. So he brought that as a legacy story, and in which he wrote the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of Apostle, that this is a legacy. This is a story. So when we read the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts, it's a legacy of Jesus and the apostle, which somebody wrote
Eh,
after the.
Ravi, that you raise a very important point there, um, uh, which I see as legacy is also not just leaving something. It's also about leaving an ideology, but also the fact that somebody somewhere needs to capture that. And I've had this statement a lot of quite recently and quite frequently, where people have said that you never know the story of what happens in the forest if you only hear the side of the hunter. That if the lion could write and you start to hear the side of the lion, you start to understand that. And I think there's a point I want to press on there, if you don't mind, and it's this: to what degree is legacy in the context of Africa, in the context of Africans, um, in the fact that we don't document a lot. There's a lot that happens, and we're thinking, hang on, where is that footage? Of course, technology has also aided our ability to capture footage. I'm thinking about some of the things my dad did, and I was wondering, oh, I wish I had footage on that. I wish I had footage on that. But in those days, we didn't have mobile phones and cameras that we could take things. To what degree does writing help to establish a legacy?
I think there's no any other way for people to understand legacy than what you read, because story. See, in our own world as Africans, like you rightly said, it's true stories. So you remember, I don't know, in my days, you will see the elderly, they will sit down. I mean, my mom or my grandmother, there was time I lived quite a long time with my grandmother, and most evenings they will tell you stories. They will tell you stories. They will tell you stories. So what they are passing down is the ancestral story. So as they have received, as they have experienced, they are passing it down. But the only challenge is that we leave those things to memory, because only few of those things are written down in the past for us as African. That doesn't mean they are not history of those things that have been passed down, and people have, in one way or the other, documented them, but not as structured as you have in this country. Now, for me, one of the things that provoked my mind when I was in school, when I was studying theology in University of Wales, will be when I read story like the story of Calvin, the story of all those theologians of the olden days, 16 something, 15 something. You will read, they have a complete story. Calvin Smith or whatever, I forgot all these theologians. You will see a complete story of their sermons. I'm thinking, yeah, look at almost about 100 years ago or 200 years ago, they catalog their sermons, they catalog their stories. So people are doing PhD in only one of their sermons. So I wonder whether we have that. That thing really stirred me up. It really stirred me up, because I also sit as one of the governors as the Christ Redeemer College. So when I went back to our governors meeting, I was saying to them, do we really have, can we catalog our own story of how we've done things? Even in this country, as maybe as a church, or maybe as a college, or maybe as some of our teachings, do we have them documented? Do we have something that we can pass on? Do we have something that is a point of reference? So, which was a challenge for me, because I was doing, one of my writing was on a spiritual warfare in African context and all those sort
Wow.
of things. And I found it difficult to find a reference. So my lecturers kept saying to me, "No, no, no, no. your references are not theologically as stable as you are. So why? No matter how I say to them that this thing happens, we have history. I've seen it. I've experienced it. We have warfare in our own context. Then show me where it's been written, where it has been theologically documented as a African context representation. So we have to follow what we can reference. We can't just say because it sounds good, you've experienced it. We're academics. We need reference
Wow.
points. So these
Wow.
are the kind of the thing that means that in many ways, our theological college, either here or in Africa, we need to start documenting things that are almost alien to people in the West, but by reference point, because they have been written by those who are academically astute, will now give respect for the legacy of those things that has happened that they have written as a future reference for those that will be following it up in future.
My. You are, Lord God. Let's go on, Revi. Let us go on. Because while we're on this thing of capturing our thoughts in book form, capturing it and documenting it, you have very strong views when it comes to creating strategic relationships, which you've already started to talk about. And you even wrote a book on the subject. You wrote a book, Move into Position,
Mm.
creating tailor-made relationships to connect and influence. And the question I have for you is this: how do you determine the relationships that matter, particularly if maybe the people in question don't share the same sort of persuasion as you do, or maybe the relationship is naturally coming close to its expiry date, maybe it's gone past the best before. How do you determine which one of these strategic relationships to build, to keep, and to nurture?
Okay. There are, in my understanding, there are different types of relationship. There are relationships that we just enter a relationship that could be defined or undefined. And then there is what I call organic relationship. You just enter into that relationship organically because you are friends. There are elements of symbiotic understanding that allow that relationship to be. But then there are some relationships that are organized, right? So something that is organic can become organized, and something that's organized can also become organic. But whichever way, there must be an entry point, whether it is organized or organic. So why is the relationship organized? If you have what I need, I have to organize the relationship whereby I use what I have as a leverage to get what I need. And what that means in relationship, like I explained in this book, is you do not engage into strategic relationship empty-handed, because you
Oh,
lose before you begin.
whoa. So we must
So
have built some
you,
capability
you must have
ourselves.
you must have something to negotiate and leverage, or else
Whoa.
you've lost before you begin. So you are going to go from area of your specific competence, no matter how low, to negotiate and leverage what you want. So I am not going to come and engage with you relationship wise if it is strategic from a position that I am a beggar, because you are going to treat me as a beggar. But I have to come from the position that I have what you need, and what you need is what I want. And so from a leverage perspective, we are engaging on equal capacity, because you don't have what I have. No matter how small of what I have, it becomes a leverage point that you have to respect. And at that point, we start to discuss.
Let me ask a question there, sir, before you go. So, I need to have something that someone wants for me to engage in these strategic relationships. But a lot of people, some people may say, well, to get me to that thing that I can use as leverage, I need you anyway to help me out. How do you balance that kind of mindset with what you've just said?
Okay, it goes back to one thing that I would like to relay back. You must find out who you are, then you must find out what you carry. So who you are and what you carry, that's all you need. That's what you need. And then doing a research of the person you are engaging with by understanding the area of gaps that they want, that they need, that they don't have, and then using what you have as a point of communication. It's all about the engagement. The initial engagement is about communication. Now, everyone goes to meet a leader or somebody that has money by asking them, can you please help me, sir? Can you help me, ma? I want this, I want that. Now, the moment you go as a beggar, you've already lost your value. Because so, but if you go from position of, I may not have everything, but I have something. See, everybody has something that is of value that can negotiate even with the president. It doesn't have everything. So it's for me to discover what does he need that he doesn't have, that I have, or I can signpost that I can use as an entry point of negotiation. So I
Wow.
can talk, and I've done that. I've done that with government officials in this country. I've done that even with head of governments. I've done that with head of establishment. I've done that. I will never engage in a meeting with anybody without first of all understanding my competence, my value, my distinctive future on the table, because that's what I'm going to hammer upon. So I'm going to make you need me. Albert, I'm the one that needs you, so that you can create an organized relationship that may become organic later in life.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let me move on. But before I do that, I want to encourage anybody watching this thing, please share this thing out. A lot of people need to hear this wisdom here because you see, a lot of times I feel that many people always think about what they don't have and they blow up what they don't have rather than looking for what they have, no matter how small that is, and use that as your negotiating, your bargaining chip, as it were. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, we've got about 15, 16 minutes to go. And
Really? My God. Just, I thought we were just starting.
oh my goodness, I wonder why I said 1 hour. Maybe I should have said 90 minutes on this one. Anyway, let me ask. There are two key questions I want you to touch on before we go. Now, you occupy this strategic position when it comes to matters of the church. And I talk about the church at large here, right? You mentioned the fact that you're a canon in the Anglican Church or the Church of England, as they call it here, and at the same time you are a pastor in a Pentecostal church. Have you found it difficult moving between those two roles, if you will?
Not at all. I think I found it one of the most bargaining power. I found it that it's about, Akin, the thing is, when you find yourself in a unique place like that, it is how you amplify it and make it look as if, and brand it and make it look
Wow.
as if you are unique, because the uniqueness in your branding is what will create the gateway to bigger platform.
The uniqueness in your branding is what will create the gateway to a bigger Oh, oh, oh.
you know
Okay.
so by branding that, it gives me the opportunity to explore both worlds and to create the niche in both worlds. For example, um I could enter into a typical Pentecostal church, and then they will they will expect me to bring my Anglican expression as a thing of beauty and joy to complement what they do, without losing my Pentecostalism. I could also explore my Anglican expression by bringing my Pentecostal, way of life into that world. But it's about entering different world by not being predictive. You see, the
Wow.
moment you can be predicted, you can be measured. The moment you can be predicted, you can be controlled. The moment you can be predicted, you can be boxed. So it is your inability, is your ability not to be predicted. They said this, they said they put a line for you that you stay within the box. Some people are in the box. Some are outside the box. Some don't see the box. It's your ability not to put the box that human being, culture, religion, or anything put on the ground that will give you the freedom to clearly navigate your future, because you don't see any restriction. Once you see restriction, you are shaped by that restriction and the people that put the restriction. So when they say there's a restriction, you kind of be quick to say, I can't see any restriction. All I'm just doing is that I'm forging ahead. I'm creating a new world. I'm creating a new narrative. I'm creating a new story. I'm creating a new future. And I'm building a legacy for others to watch and see and think that there's someone who has gone ahead to make to path the way for them to be. And so for me, I really don't find that I consider it as an amazing experience in all of that. So yesterday I was spending the whole day recording for TBN TV for Christmas Carol. So it was in a beautiful Anglican church, Christ Church, Chollywood, but they want the whole, there's a bit of a Pentecostal expression and all of that, but they then say that we know you, Yemi, when you come, put on your robe, be full of the Anglican. Then, well, I put on my robe and I'm a full Anglican on the thing, but when I pray like a Pentecostal. So someone asked me and said, you messing up brain, man. you are full. You nobody can be so Anglican in the way you rubbed up, but your prayer doesn't sound like it. I said that's the point. The moment you can predict me, you control me. But it is the element of unpredictability that bring the newness. So it makes people to question. I want to know that guy. I want to know more about him. And it's intentional. It's deliberate by creating your own space, by creating your own story, by becoming like an honeycomb that attract people onto you. Because if you don't have anything, you are not going to be attracted. Nobody's going to come alongside you. And that's the beauty of being a fruit. Listen, there's a difference between a tree that produces the fruit and just the tree that is big, right? Now, when you are a tree, nobody comes to you, no matter how big you are. But the moment you start to produce the fruit, people will come all the way to come and catch the fruit. So what is important is that you just don't become a big tree that fills the whole place that people talk about. The question is, are you fruitful? Are people attracted by the fruit that you have? That when they eat your food, they are saying, you know what? I'm taking more. I'm going to give it to some other people. And that gives you the fruitfulness, the multiplication, the duplication of what you carry that people come and take and they go and plant somewhere else. And that's when you start fulfilling purpose in life.
Wow. Wow. All right. Let me move on to this other question because I really want to get your perspective on this point. I would have to go back and watch this over and over again. But there are ongoing protests in many nations, in Nigeria, in Guinea, Thailand. The world is just even we haven't even recovered from all the protests regarding Black lives and that side of things. Um, can you unpack what it means to be a leader in these uncertain times?
You see, this year has been an interesting year for me personally in many ways. Because if you look at the protest for the Black Lives Matters, what that has brought, the change, for example, here in the United Kingdom that we've seen or we are seeing. Um, and then it's not only the change that we're seeing, but it's about how do you, because oftentimes when we protest, we give information, but it is not only the information we give in the protest, but it is the transformation at the end of the protest that is key. And so, if you look at the protest that is going on all around the world, let me take, for example, the one that's going on in Nigeria, because most Nigerians will be watching this program to end SARS. You see, when you get to a point in life when you are back to the wall and there's no more way, no, you cannot run any further, then you have to now face the person that is chasing you, because then you're not afraid to die. You are now saying the worst thing that could happen is that you kill me. But I've quit running. Now I need to challenge back. And that's what we are seeing. Never underestimate the power of the mob. Never underestimate the power of the mob. Because the mob has the power and the ability to. We've seen it in the breaking down of the Eastern Germany, the Berlin, the wall. We've seen it in Russia. We see it in some of the Eastern countries. The people, they were the one that brought down the government because they were pushed to the wall. They couldn't go any further, and they remain that this has to end. And we've seen that change government. We've seen that change country. What we're seeing in Nigeria, I believe that is as an emergence of a future that none of us expect as a country, because people are in a position to take it as it is. The future will be well one day. So we go to church, we fast, we pray, we believe God. Not that God doesn't answer prayer, but God is saying to people most of the time, do
Do
something.
something.
Do something about your prayer sins. But then there is never a protest to change, or a protest, or more like a revolution, without fatalities.
Hmm.
People will die. We will see some bad experiences of so many things. But in the end, it will change. We saw that in South Africa. Many people died during the apartheid protest. Mandela went to prison. Things happen. But then, because they maintain that things have to change, ultimately, the power of the mob, the power of the people will always change things. And I have no doubt that this is just the beginning of many things that will happen in the country. And the beautiful things is that I wish I could tell our leaders that in years past, you could get away with stuff and bury it and close it down and shut the media. Too bad. We live in a world that the second it happens, it's all over the world. And so the challenge is, even if you want to quiet the people, you cannot quiet the media. Millions of people who are doing the videoing, who are recording what's happening in Nigeria, second by second, we are getting it here in UK. So people are getting it all over the world. So the protests are emanating all over the place. So the world whereby you could just make a coup, or you could just do something and cover it up, is over. The power of the social media is so intense that it can multiply and amplify information, and it can create such a momentum that the government, unless they find a way out, they will not be able to hold it.
Wow. Now there is a trend, and if we broaden the scope of this, and we, like I said, we look at Thailand, even some months back, Hong Kong, and all these places, we're seeing something about the demographic of the people driving this
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And not only that, we're also seeing a case where we're not seeing a clear leader as such, where someone is, you kind of see that this is the person that they're following. Are we starting to see a fundamental change in leadership styles, leadership structures, where it's no longer about the one person, but the power of the collective?
I think that's what we've seen in the case of Nigeria. There's no one person that can be targeted that this is the leader, right? But we've seen that they are collective in advancement. So it's very difficult to pinpoint something that this is the leader that is doing this thing. This is the leader that is driving them. So because once you take the leader out, you scatter everybody. It doesn't exist anymore. But because there's a movement which you cannot pinpoint who is actually, because they have movement. So there's a difference between a movement and a leader. So the movement itself is steered up by unknown leader who are working behind the scene, but not the elevated, exalted, one-man leader that we've seen all over, that have plagued the old generation. Because the man sit down in his living room and make a decision who's going to be the governor, who's going to be the minister, who's going to be that. It doesn't matter whether you're qualified or not. So they make the rules, what things should be. But we are seeing now a movement of people where they are collective in terms of what they are doing. Now, whether it's sustainable is questionable. It's very questionable. But for now, it's delivering what it's supposed to deliver. And one of the things I've learned in life, I keep saying to people now, is if there's anything I've learned in the last 2 years, or I've learned that, somebody say, what's your greatest knowledge in leadership? I will say to anyone, don't start out and be out on yourself alone.
Hmm.
When you are taken out, you soon be in oblivion, whatever you do. Before you start out, create a capacity and a movement of people with you
Hmm.
that you are bleeding with. So it doesn't matter if they take you out, it's still moving. It's a movement. It doesn't matter who fall behind. Within the movement, you are still moving. But if you are the one man out with so many people following, the moment you are out, you destroy the whole movement. and you can easily be eliminated. So I've learned that don't build alone, build with others. And by building with others, you grow others. You multiply your strength and you advance with clear capacity.
What would you say to, if you had the opportunity to address youths in Nigeria specifically now, what would you say to them to do?
I will say your future is in your hands, and your future is actually now, and your future is fight for it. Some of you may not see the fruit and the end result of the future, but that's how it's supposed to be. But that might be, you might be the one whose story and whose legacy will be written forever because you stood the test of time, not unwisely, but wisely with clarity and focus. But be clear as well, be strategic in what they are looking for. In fact, I would advise further because statistics says 63% of the voters list of Nigeria are actually the young people. 63%. I would almost want to say to them that you have the capacity and the strength to vote out any government, to vote out anyone you don't want in a democratic system, rig or no rig. 63% is a lot. If all the young people go out and say we want to vote out whoever is controlling and dictating for us, we want people that we want in government, they can actually change the House of Rep, the Senate, and even change the presidency and the governorship. They have the numbers, and there's power in the numbers in the democratic government. I will say to them, do not give up. Make sure that the next election you take charge, you take control, and you prepare yourself and you lead your future, but don't put it in the hands of the people who are leading you for now.
Wow. Um, what is next in the world of reading?
Wow, what is next? That's a very good one. The next for me is that I'm gravitating a lot into a special brand in cultural intelligence, and I'll tell you why that came into being. And this is part of thinking strategically. During the Black Lives Matters, there was a lot about people talking about bias, prejudice, racism, and I realized that I was involved in conversation over 39 or 41 different conversations on TV, on radio, on interviews, on all sorts. I was tired of being interviewed, of speaking about it. And then it occurred to me that, hang on, we were just talking about it and people are just listening. Because when people come into the meeting, they will say, we want to hear your story. I don't want you to tell me my story. I'm tired of telling my story. What we need to do is to bring change. And then then the question is, how will the change come? Then it occurred to me that most of the conversations center around information, information around biases, prejudice, stereotyping, but nobody has a solution. So we hear the stories, we feel the pain, we negotiate what and what is not, but nobody changes and life moves on. And then I noticed that for people to change, they must have not only information, they must have knowledge, they must have understanding. And it is the knowledge and understanding that reveal their own deficiency and bring a new knowledge to them that will change the future. So it then made me to study in America cultural intelligence, to be certified as a cultural intelligence expert. So what that means is when I engage organization and leaders, I'm not engaging with you that, oh, what do we need? We need to hear the story of the colored people, what they have. No, 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 don't hear their story. What you need to do is put system structure in place by looking into your own cultural inagility, because it's about cultural agility, knowledge, strategy, and plan into place to make things happen. So we begin to then teach people that actually the world is divided under different cultural umbrella. The way the Africans behave, they see things, they take information, they answer questions as interview, they do relationship is different from the people in the West. It's different from the Asian people. Now, unless you are culturally agile, you will be viewing things from your own lens. And so, until you increase your cultural agility through information, knowledge, understanding, and retraining, then you will still remain in your biases and nothing changes. And this is what changes the story. And this is the area where I'm embarking upon. And this is the information and the knowledge and the training I'm now giving organizations.
Wow. Thank you so much. We have now unfortunately run out of time, but I am sure we will get you back at some point because these conversations must continue. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your super busy schedule. But we really appreciate this. And to our viewers, I want to thank you for joining us today across all the platforms. I think we are going to rerun this particular segment, maybe tomorrow or the day after. We will rerun this because it's important for us to keep this entire message out in its entirety. And I'd also say, join us again. There are different programs coming up in this month of October. We've got another very powerful speaker coming on Monday to also talk about this same topic and broaden the horizon for us. But thank you very much for joining and look forward to seeing you again. Bye for now.